My name is Joakim, and I have met all of you earlier. And I'm super proud to have Hans-Jürgen with me today from CYBERTEC. So Joakim here, I have my own company now since roughly 1.5 years back. And I work in the Nordics with my company called PAXIA. And I'm absolutely dependent on good partners. And in this case, I'm partnering very much with CYBERTEC because for me, with my company, when we talk about modernizations, digital initiatives, and so on, for me, I come from the kind of data layer where the data, of course, has to be in good shape and on a good platform. And for me, that is Postgres. And CYBERTEC is a veteran in the Postgres area and in the community. And actually, Hans, the founder of CYBERTEC, you celebrate 25 years anniversary this year as well. So let us start. And you guys, you saw the invitation, and today we will Hans will take us through the capabilities and how we solve and how we simplify cross auditing that I have come across during the years within the banking industry, for example. So you find fairly complex older legacy solutions like from IBM that is very cumbersome to perform this kind of audits on the databases, and it's also very costly. And here we will discuss this challenge today, and we will also take you through a very state-of-the-art open source-based solution, how it can be simplified at a very cost-efficient level. So Hans, I hand over to you, and yeah, let's move further.
So, hello everyone. Thanks for coming, and thanks for the introduction, Joakim. It's much appreciated. Can everybody hear me properly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, no complaints. Very good. Okay, so my name is Hans. I've been in database engineering for the better part of 25 years. So we are running a database company focusing on Postgres since the year 2000. We are catering to basically every industry from banking to government to medical industry, services, etc. And as a global database company here, we're obviously teaming up with our partners. And our partner in the Nordic is PAXIA, as Joakim has already mentioned. So we're working in this area exclusively for those guys regarding this topic. And yeah, as you can see here, we're quite international, working everywhere. And in case you want to reach out to us, Joakim is the guy to talk to. So there are things people love, and there are things people hate, right? And usually compliance is more on the hate side because what it does is it imposes a ton of legal requirements on you. And what you get is a well done or not a fine, you know? So database compliance is really something that is there by law. It's usually not to be discussed. And usually you're often on the receiving side of punishment, right? So that's basically how many people see it. And the reason is that legacy systems have sometimes made this fairly complicated. And, you know, this entire process is not something engineers generally like. But what really happens in a bank is they're all hybrid. They all have thousands of systems. And a data breach in a bank or in an insurance is like a nuke. It's like a nuclear weapon. So just imagine you are, let's say, HSBC, let's say a big bank or a central bank, and all of a sudden, all your data is out there on the internet, on WikiLeaks or on whatever, you know. So it's not just about legal requirements. It's also about making sure that data privacy is taken care of, processes are okay, that things can be tracked and followed, and just done in a professional way. So it's not only about the legal requirements, which obviously many people despise, but it's also a benefit that gives you compliance also gives you a benefit that is awareness, better processes, standardization, and everybody's talking about the same thing usually. So it also gives you interoperability, if you can call it that way. So some time ago, we noticed that this compliance topic, and just to my background, I'm a hardcore database engineer since the start of my career. I'm a data guy. And if you tell a data guy how to behave, you can imagine, uh, I'm coming from a technical side. You want to enable things and not disable things by trade. So, but some time ago, we noticed that this entire compliance stuff was flooding us. So, and we also noticed that it got so complicated that we need to put something into the ring to fix this problem. So what we did is we came up with Scalefield Secure to fix database compliance. So, and we've been doing Postgres all our lives. That's what we do. So we are Postgres people by design and by DNA. So that's our job. But obviously, if you're talking about a modern IT systems, there is no such thing as database as Postgres only. I mean, even if it's Postgres only, it could be Postgres on-prem, it could be Postgres Enterprise Edition, it could be Postgres on Google Cloud, it could be Postgres on Huawei, which is called GaussDB, by the way, which, they're flavors. So even solving Postgres compliance starts to be a bit more complicated. And then you notice that many of those systems out there or companies out there are running thousands of systems. I've just seen something on the Southern Hemisphere. They're running 11,000 incarnations of MS SQL. Just to give you a number of scale. So it's not just how can I make my database compliant? The question is really how can I make my entire infrastructure, my entire database infrastructure compliant, and do it in a way that if we add 100 systems tomorrow, it's still compliant because it's compliant by design and by automation. And this is really the idea of Scalefield Secure, is to have an audit solution that is not just for Postgres, but also for Oracle, DB2, MS SQL, and some others. Also, one has to keep in mind that all those, there are compliance solutions out there for this type of stuff, but they're all written shortly after Christopher Columbus discovered America, after the Stone Age ended. There's so much old school legacy out there that smells like the 80s, so that it's really time to build something that is more modern and stuff like that. So this means we can run on premise, VMware, Kubernetes, OpenShift, whatever, so we're essentially container based. So let's have a look. How does it work? So as I noticed before, as I said before, it's not just we want to be compliant, one system, one database, but what we really want is to have compliant infrastructure. And what is really, really a problem in operations, imagine you're an Oracle database administrator or a Postgres database administrator, and a guy comes to you and says, I want to run an agent on your system. Hell no, you don't want to run an agent on some Solaris machine, on an AX machine, on hundreds of Windows machines, on 50 incarnations of Linux, on PowerPC, on whatever. So everything that needs an agent on the system or in your container at scale is hell, right? Because you have to update it, you have to monitor it, you have to deploy it, you have to run it, upgrading, it's misery at scale. So whenever we can, in Scalefield Secure, and this is true for DB2, MS SQL, Postgres, and some others, we try to run without an agent on the system. So we have a thing called scale field secure gather. It connects to the system we want to audit, right? And what it does then is it fetches the audit data. And there are two things that can happen. We can fetch the audit data, or we know that data should be there and we don't get anything. So we don't only monitor and alert when we find something in the data. It's evenly interesting if there is no data coming, because you got some banking system that is running Black Friday and there is no audit data. Come on, my friend, what's going on, right? So that's the first layer. So we aggregate this, and audit data, depending on your requirements, can be really, really large. If you're only interested in permissions, when did the permission change, when was a user created, things like that, we're talking peanuts. But imagine, in some cases, you have to audit every update, every insert, and in some weird cases, you even have to audit when data is selected. So let me give you an example from my history. For some 20 years ago, we were consulting a social security institution. So an institution which was basically handling medical data. And there was a new guy working in this department, and he had access to all the health data in this country. And the first thing he did was checking for sexual diseases of all his female workmates, right? That is obviously not just a moral problem, that's a legal problem, that's a compliance problem, while maintaining federal health, I have to say. But, this guy's fired on the spot. So sometimes it's not about checking permissions and stuff. It's also who is reading this data. This is important for police data. This is important for medical data in some cases. So imagine you have to audit every select statement on all the medical data of Sweden or wherever you are, or Finland. This adds up, this adds up. And so we have to reflect this. So what we do is we gather the audit data, we pack it tightly into a thing called Parquet. People who have been dealing with data science and machine learning might know this. So it's highly efficient column store. So we put this into long-term storage that is super efficient. It's like 30 times smaller than a raw data. Usually it depends on what it contains, but that's the ballpark number. Then you can store this for ages because it's a lot smaller. And finally, in zone number 2, what we have is our aggregation engine, where we can basically aggregate and analyze this data in a distributed way. Why distributed? First of all, it's a question of scale. And secondly, consider you have 1,000 Oracle servers. They're not all in the same department, right? So one might be in risk department, next one might be, analytics department, next one might be marketing, whatever, So even there are some legal obligations in some cases that you cannot store this data in the same place, So so we can do distributed for scale, but we can also have this data in different places for regulation and compliance. And finally, at the end of the day, we have customizable dashboards that allow us to show what you have. What I've shown you here is really 3 applications. One is administration, one is management, one is operations. But really the configuration, the UI side is built with our CYBETEC tooling. And this is usually a bit customized because it has to reflect your internal organization. Who is auditing whom? Who is allowed to see what? You might have people who just audit Postgres. You might have people who are running compliance for Oracle. So not everybody will need the same user interface. So what you see at the end of the day in zone number 3 is essentially fairly configurable, I would say. But the idea is gather audit at scale without running on those systems, right? That's super important for for operations. Make sure that you can support multiple databases, tightly compress what you have, and finally aggregate it in a way that makes sense. Schedule things, make sure it's compliant, and finally display it in a nice way. So here is how this works: rules, logic, a bit of data science, and often there are basically two cases here we have to satisfy. Case number one is checklists. You need to have this data for ABCD. That's the easy case. Just store it, analyze it, count it, show it. In some cases, what you have to do is outlier detection, right? You have to see, okay, is this normal behavior? Is this abnormal behavior? Is this something that is supposed to be, you know? So we're combining this with variable pluggable tools from the area of data science that allow us to, in case it's needed, plug in additional technologies such as some pattern recognition or, whatever you want. Assuming that it's doable given a certain amount of data, which needs a fair amount of infrastructure sometimes. Any questions so far, just to make sure we are all aligned? Okay. So this is how we apply this. And finally, we just made some UIs with CYBETEC, which can be customized. So it all comes together in some nice graphical user interface. So how does it work in real life? The auditor wants to see when did which user with which policy make which change, how often, was it successful, was it non-successful, did somebody try to log in repeatedly, where did this guy come from, is this normal or is this non-normal behavior, is this something out of scope, things like that. So what you obviously have here is a couple of user interfaces that allow you to see everything in one go. What is important here is this is customized, as you can see. And secondly, everything you can see is also an API. So if you need data to be exposed, you can do that. But everything you can see in the dashboard is always automatically available with the same permissions as an API. So this is important for integration, for messaging, for, simple question. We got an alert. Who's going to read it? Second option, somebody got an alert. He's supposed to react. Nothing happens. What's going to happen? So you need to clarify this. So obviously, this needs integration and reminders and all kinds of things, right? So what is also important in the area of compliance is patch levels. So we did this here for Oracle. I mean, obviously, you can do similar stuff for Postgres, that we can basically extract which versions you're running of the engine so that it can correlate this with your desired state. So in Oracle, you would say these patch stats are needed, right? There is a divergence between the patch set and what you have, or between the Postgres version you should have and the Postgres version you do have. And this allows you to quickly assess if there are any issues on the security side in your infrastructure. I mean, keep in mind, you're running 1,000 systems and Postgres security update comes out. What do you expect to happen, right? So, and by having this as part of your compliance solution, you can also automatically see, hey guys, we got security leak over there because we're still running some Stone Age incarnation of Postgres that has whatever security vulnerability in it, right? Any questions so far?
Silent audience.
Huh?
A silent audience.
A silent audience. So the next thing we have to talk about is when you're dealing with those types of things, we also have to keep an eye on the fact that, okay, we collected massive amounts of data. That is nice, but eventually you need to search, right? And what we do have already here is a various means of searching and analysis. So if you're looking for specific statements, or if you're looking for some very specific operations, that you also have search capability in different ways. Okay. So finally, we're doing this as professionals. And I really want to point out that, yes, compliance is something that is not the, let's say, primary happiness of your young coders, and it's certainly something that is also needed for regulations and legal requirements and so on. But it can also help you to make sure that your systems are not just more secure on paper, but also more secure on operational level. Because imagine, if you're running 1,000 systems, your biggest enemy is inconsistency. So you've got 1,000 systems and 20 of them have some stupid, I don't know, everybody is allowed to read everything policy, something like that. So this can be a data breach. And the bigger your organization, the more valuable it is to have access to all those things. And obviously, you got, as you grow, your information becomes more valuable for you. Therefore, it becomes more valuable for everybody else. But at the same time, your attack surface is bigger and bigger. You're growing, you have more systems that have more valuable data, which means the problem squares, right? So more critical systems containing more critical information means risk squared, okay? So it's not like a linear thing. So the bigger you are, the more critical this is. And therefore, compliance not only gives you the legal side, it also gives you a real benefit, which means oversight, visibility, traceability, trackability. And obviously, we built that as a product on top of Postgres, fully scalable, modern architecture, modern anything. So that's what we do. Yeah, so that's our offering. What we do with Scalefield Secure in cooperation with our folks at PAXIA. This is usually an infrastructure project. So it's not something like you deploy and that's it. I mean, you do deploy and that's it on the technical side, but obviously we have to integrate into processes and things like that. So this is a project that gives you full visibility, and our job is to make it as easy for everybody as humanly possible to deploy this at scale. So, any questions, anybody?
One question on the database supported platform. So is there a real big list of or actual list of database platforms that you support?
At the moment, we do Postgres, various incarnations of Postgres. We do Oracle. We do MS SQL. We do DB2. And some other engines are in experimental state.
Okay.
Which ones do you need is the main question.
Well, I was looking for the mainframe DB2.
Linux and Windows. Linux and Windows.
Not the Linux Windows. Mainframe.
It's Linux. Yeah, I know. So we don't do the mainframe stuff at the moment. And the reason is simple. Mainframe would be doable, but we don't have test infrastructure to actually see, you know. So at the moment we're doing Linux and Windows, but we are eager to work with a project partner that gives us the opportunity to implement for mainframe and work on this project, because this has been on my mind for some time, but we just don't have the infrastructure and the customer base at this point with this product to do this for mainframe.
Okay.
So if you need this for mainframe, let's sync up, and maybe there is a way, because I don't know how similar the mainframe DB2 is to the Linux and Windows. That we don't know.
Okay. And how about, so do you use the database platform specific audits, or how do you extract this data? What
It
is?
depends on the infrastructure. For Postgres, we have two means of extraction. Mean number one is BG audit, right? That we have to do in some cases when it's in cloud deployment. It's not our preferred method for Postgres. The second option is we have an extension for Postgres that is hooking into the Postgres core and is extracting audit information directly on the executor level. And we store it as part of the transaction log. That's what we do for Postgres. On the Oracle side, we attach to the unified audit trail. On DB2 for Linux and Windows, the way this works is you can expose it as tables and fetch it from there.
So which means we still need to enable the audit at the database level and store the data in the tables. Is that?
Yeah, because there's no other way to fetch it. For Postgres, we can, because for Postgres, we can just do what we want because it's open source. We can hook in there. For Oracle, you need the audit trail because it's the only source of information we have. There is no way to do this on the wire. So to sniff on the protocol because you don't know the implications. Because you might see on the wire, you might see an insert, but in the background, it's a trigger that does, all the dirty stuff.
Yeah.
So we can't do it with wire sniffing. We need database-specific means, which are obviously based on Postgres because we can write them on our own. And for Oracle, it's unified audit trail, and for DB2, obviously the files I mentioned, which you can expose as tables.
How about SQL Server?
SQL Server has two means of extraction. If I remember, there's the Windows log, and you can also extract it through some functions, if I'm correct. I'm not a Windows guy, I have to say.
Okay.
I can tell you every bit that's moving in Postgres for compliance. On Windows is dedicated other guy internally. So what are your needs? What are your requirements? Maybe you can elaborate a bit on what we're trying to solve here.
Well, I think we are looking for the kind of getting the basic logging enabled on all of our database platforms. So I was just trying to see if this kind of would help in enabling in an easy way. But then
logging or audit?
Logging plus audit. So it's kind of
okay.
So.
Yeah, it's a different thing because if it's logging, it depends a bit on how you can extract it from the system without being on the system. We thought a lot in the past about. TDS protocol for MS SQL is open. It's readable. It's understandable. For Oracle, there are ways to read this, but that's not so openly to be discussed. And the problem is really that if you just see the SQL statements, you don't see what's going on in the backside because of dependencies and whatever, so you can't just track synonyms and things like that. So the way, as you mentioned, is you need the audit trail, but we had a couple of customers who had issues with, let's say, Guardium and some other solutions. What we do here is we fetch and purge very often. So it's not like we fetch and purge audit every 5,000 years. What we really do here is we do this in a tight loop, and we also behave in a way that every minute or so, you can configure that we inject an event that is supposed to show up in the audit so that we see if anybody has done some nasty stuff that prevents us from doing our job properly and not losing anything, right? So there are some mechanisms in place, and we try to do it in the most simplistic way. However, as you stated correctly, it depends a bit on the database engine what is doable. Easiest is Postgres because we just hook up to the transaction log stream and we know everything we want to know.
Okay.
There's some hooks on the Postgres side where we can add modules similar to execute the extensions and things like PGStat statements. There are hooks around authentication. So in Postgres, we can deep dive into this.
Okay.
And Oracle, it's actually decently okay, I have to say. So, yeah. Any more questions?
You have some from Todd in the message or in the chat, Hans. So we'll start with business type of question. Competitors that we have in mind. I am aware of IBM Guardian, part of it at least, yeah.
Yeah, there is Oracle Vault and some other things like that that are there, but it's way more expensive and fairly complicated to deal with. I mean, if you look at Guardium, they have their own scripting language and things like that. I mean, how many people in the world can speak this? I mean, how do you do your HR if you're the only guy in the world who can run this is 5,000 kilometers away. So what we do here on the data science side is we use our Scalefield platform as a whole so that it can quickly spin up a container, get a subset of data, run your own BI there if you want to. So we try to be pluggable, and we also try to do it in a way that we are more aware of human resource related constraints. In other words, we cannot invent our own scripting languages just for 5 people and hope that somebody can use that at scale without breaking anything or without killing the HR human resources tool supply chain completely. So that's also one of the things we try to do here is to be accessible by people with skills you might find on the market.
Todd is also wondering around the integrations to CIM products.
Which product? Can you didn't hear it properly?
It's in the chat as well, Hans. If you can,
I haven't opened it because I shared my full screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you mean identity management or what is it?
Any integrations with the CEIM products? CEIM products.
Meaning shortcut for?
Could you help me there, Todd? Security information and event management.
Yeah, what I said, as I stated before, it's we have API available,
Yeah.
So we generate our own events, we store them, and all integrations. I mean, we have the data. Integrations have to be made. There are just so many systems out there that we don't ship anything out of the box here, apart from what we create as customizable events. Reason being is it depends a bit on where you are on the planet, what those guys want to see, how it's delivered, and how they live that. So integration code has to be made, and I'm not aware of all those commercial options out there.
That's okay from Todd.
So I assume you're talking about something like ITSM suite or things like that. Is that correct?
I would assume so. It's from Todd here, but I would assume.
Okay.
And Todd is happy with the answer. I also saw another comment or question from Todd here. So it needs pretty high level permissions on the OS and DBMS itself. Have you decided with at least privilege in mind?
What we run, if we go back to the original site here, so our gather stuff that fetches data, that's just a container. That's a stupid container. It fires up, it talks to exactly one database, and passes data on into those buckets. So in order to work with, say, Oracle, we do need to be able to read the unified audit trail. That's all. We need to be able to run 2 procedures and read the unified audit trail. Everything else we don't touch. I mean, we do touch one more table for versions and some stuff like that, but that's pretty much it. So yes, we try to run with minimal privileges. The problem is if you're auditing all the updates, you see a lot by design, but we don't expose it on the level that is a problem. Let's put it that way. So on the UI side, we can restrict pretty much everything we want. That's a configuration. We don't do much on the source databases apart from reading audit and purging it. So we don't want to see anything else actually. So we don't sit in the middle on the wire that could cause downtime or anything. So everything you see is a bunch of containers, so which could be distributed. So we are running with unprivileged users on the gather side, on the aggregation side, on the UI side. On the Oracle side, as I said, we need to be able to read the audit trails. And in case of Postgres, we either need the BG audit, which is a text that is exposed. We need to analyze that. But you can obviously decide on who is going to read aggregate data, who is going to read what raw data, how long do you keep it, how do you do that. There is a way, for example, for the packets, for the large stuff in the middle to encrypt this. But obviously it needs to be integrated in a security concept. But yes, we are an audit and compliance tool, so we also have to be aware that we need to audit ourselves and have a process for that. Any more questions?
Not in the chat. Thanks, Todd, for.
I hope the answer is satisfactory. So please comment on if there is something on your mind here.
Just want to say also that well, I'm going to send out the presentation and the recording from this webinar. And then, of course, we are very happy to have a one-to-one follow-up with you if you want to dig in further to this discussion or this area. Just want to say that probably have noticed, but Hans-Jürgen here and his team, they are everything about Postgres, but have noticed during my last year here working with Hans-Jürgen and team that that they are extremely good in the security space and compliance and audit space. So, but it's everything about Postgres and a good contributor as well to Postgres. But they have seen that your security area and compliance area, you're super strong here as well, Hans.
Yeah, I'm a Unix guy, so we segregate here between Unix and Windows people, so ask me anything on the Unix side, and for the Windows guys, I'll get back to you.